Good morning, everyone. This is the Door County Fire and Rescue Workers panel, and I am Beth Locken. I am from the Door County Library Art, and I am going to turn it over to David, who has the moderator seat. Thank you very much.
Beth, thank you, and welcome everyone. This is a very exciting event, and I'm very pleased to be the moderator for this panel. My name is David Siegel. I am a captain with the Green Bay Metro Fire Department. I've been on the department here for 25 years. But before I became a career firefighter, I was a volunteer firefighter EMT in Black Earth and Mazomanie, Wisconsin. These are small towns just west of Madison. About 10 times as many sheep and hogs as there were people. So very much representative of rural Wisconsin and what it was like to be a volunteer firefighter paramedic or a volunteer EMT firefighter in Wisconsin. I think a great deal of Michael Perry's book, Population 485. It represents very well not just small town life in Wisconsin, but he really does capture the essence of being a volunteer firefighter, EMT paramedic in small town Wisconsin. Now we're going to move on to the introductions for the 6 panel members, all of whom are from Door County. So one at a time, I'll introduce them. Please share with us your position, years of service, and anything else you'd like to share. So first up, Ann Jensen.
Hello. I have been with the service since 1983. I started as a EMT casual call and went to paramedic school in 85 and was fortunate enough to get a full-time position with the service in 1987. I've been with the service since then. It's been the only service that I've ever worked with. And that's okay because it's been a great place to work. And I've enjoyed it very much. Come from a long family of fire department. My grandfather was fire chief for Sturgeon Bay for many years, and my father was volunteer for 49 and a half years, actually. I met my ex-husband through this job, and he was an EMT with one of the fire departments, and he's still a fireman with that department. And I have 2 sons who are following in his footsteps, and I have an adult daughter who is a nurse.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Paul Swanson.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Swanson. I'm currently the assistant fire chief up on Washington Island, and I'm a Door County advanced EMT. This morning, I'm working a shift at our North Station in Sister Bay. I've been with Door County now just a little over 11 years. And on the island, I've lived there for over 23 years now. I got my start in fire with the City of Lake Mills Fire Department back about 15 years ago. So worked down in Jefferson County around Madison part-time. And also took my EMT course from Madison and started with Lake Mills EMS down there. Shortly after, joined the Washington Island Fire Department because we had a house up here too. And my great-grandfather, he was assistant fire chief way back when. My older brother's was a cop and a part-time firefighter. My son has followed me into this. He works for the ferry line up on Washington Island, and he's a Door County advanced EMT and Washington Island firefighter. And I've also got an adult daughter who's a nurse. Always been part-time. I currently work full-time for Phillips 66. I sell lubricants for a living. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Chris Hecht.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for participating. My name is Chris Hecht, and I'm the fire chief with the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department. I've been the chief for about 20 years. I'm a paramedic for the county of Door, been doing that for just over 30 years. Like Paul, I got my start on Washington Island, actually, on the volunteer fire department there, and then moved down to Sister Bay in the early 90s. Like many of the people on the panel, multi-generational family in fire and EMS. My son is a firefighter here on the department, and both my wife and daughter are also first responders for the department. And my daughter is also a nurse in Green Bay. And when I read Michael Perry's book and then reviewed it for this panel, there are so many parallels between, what we do and what he writes about in the small town. And when you read it, you start to reflect on similar circumstances that you have experienced, or parallels between the book and what we do. And hopefully that comes out in the discussions today.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Erika DeFere.
Hi guys, my name's Erika. I'm a paramedic lieutenant with Door County EMS. I've been full-time with the service since 2018 and was part-time casual there for 2 years before that. I've been a paramedic for the last 6 years, was an EMT for 2 years before that, working out in the Green Bay area. I'm originally from the Green Bay area. I currently live in the town of Sebastopol. So I also do EMR for Sebastopol, and then I'm also on the Jacksport Fire Department as an EMR as well. My husband is also a paramedic, EMR, and firefighter for Door County EMS and Jacksport, as well as my brother-in-law. And then I also have a sister who's a nurse. And my mom was a flight medic for several years, which is what got me interested in EMS. So I look forward to hearing what everybody else.
Hey, Erika, thank you. Thank you, Erika. Mark Dekeyser.
Hi. I'm on Bug Fire Department since 84. I'm a captain. My father was one of the founding members, as this is a fairly new department. It just started in 68. And my mother was an EMT for a short time. My wife was EMT also for a short time, but she had to give it up because at that time we were starting our family. But she is a nurse. I have a daughter as a nurse, and I guess we're just a family. I have had a brother-in-law that's been on the department. I know I have an uncle. I've actually been a member of the Amberg Fire Department up in Marinette County for a while when I moved up there for a job. Other than that, that's about it.
All right. Mark, thank you. And Rich Olson.
Good morning. My name is Rich Olson. I'm from the Southern Door Fire Department. I've been on for 31 years in total, and 28 of those as a emergency medical responder. I'm a first generation. I got on without having anybody else to follow in their footsteps. I have a niece that is in EMT school right now, so I'm hoping to at least pass on somehow through her that there'll be a future in this life for somebody else. 8 months ago, I was chosen to be the new chief for Southern Door Fire Department, and it's been a challenging experience, and moving forward as the time goes on.
All right, Rich, thank you very much. Would like to revisit the subject of Michael Perry's book. When Population 485 first came out and I read it, recognized what an incredibly successful book this is at capturing so much of what emergency services is like. For those of you that are not emergency responders, I'm sure you recognize how well he captures Wisconsin life, but he captures so much of what it is to be a firefighter, a paramedic, an EMT, any sort of responder. In particular, he captures how we know so much about each other. And that, of course, comes from the familiarity and the intimacy of emergency services work. But he also really describes very well what it's like to do this job, to do this work, to serve our communities. And some of the phrases I want to share with you are the best indicators of Michael Perry's success as a writer. He talks about emergency work as cutting through the chaos, and that rescue work is like jazz. And that really is the essence of what it's like to be us and to do what we do. And one particularly profound line that I want to share with you as a last line is he was talking about being at a call in which a person had died, and that was a dead on arrival, no transport. But of course, there were many family members that had yet to be notified. And this is Michael Perry's words of what it was like. It's the darkest secret you can hold. And I see a lot of head shaking in the panel. And I think that that very well describes the power, almost the magic, certainly the talent of Michael Perry. So he provides a great insight into a world, and we will use that insight and his power to elaborate. So there are a series of questions that I will pose to the panel. In this format, I will pose it to three of the panel members directly, and then if others wish to add, they can. The second question will go to the next three, and so on. So the first question is the volunteer force and activities that Michael Perry portrays in his book typical of rural firefighting EMS units around Wisconsin? So how well, in your experience, your world, does Michael Perry capture what it's like to be a responder in Wisconsin? And we'll start back at the top with Ann Jensen.
I think Michael, as you had stated, has done a wonderful job in describing the day-to-day of EMS. I do not work fire, but I work alongside of them. I think that the day-to-day workings of the fire and EMS and how Michael portrays it is very much like it is here in Door County. I do not work with the fire department, so someone else with the fire department experience may be able to shed better light on that. Working alongside of these people though, and working with our EMRs, I would say he's spot on in how in his descriptive book he's spot on with every detail. There isn't anything in this book that I disagree with. Like I said, perhaps someone more with the fire end of things could elaborate better on that than I can.
And you used an acronym there, EMR, for the audience. Could you define what EMR is and their role?
Yes, EMR is Emergency Medical Responder, also known as first responder. And that it started out first responder, and now we've kind of moved to calling them EMRs. And they are the ones that are coming in. They're the ones living at home. They're in their street clothes. They're wearing the pager. And they're the ones that when the pager goes off for their area that they live in, they're responding to the call. They're the first ones on scene. Extremely vital link in our chain of how things work and things go. I cannot say enough for our EMRs in the county. It has been that way the entire time that I've been working. They enabled me to do my job more efficiently, but I mean, they're the ones getting there and giving us the rundown so we can mentally and physically prepare for what we're going to find on scene.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Paul Swanson, how does Michael Perry's description compare to your experiences?
I think, as I was reading the book, because it's been about 7 years since I read it, as far as the day-to-day and the interactions and the relationships and all that stuff, very much the same. But then I was reminded that, that book, I think, is about 10 years old. And in the fire and EMS systems, we're constantly evolving. Things are always changing. I mean, I can remember when I started on the ambulance here in Door County, it was a 2 EMT rig. And how we did things back then and to how we do them now, totally different. Remember when I started in the fire service, we went in and we found the fires. We put them out. We did things, we just did them. Then it all kind of circled back to, there's nobody in that building. Life safety is very important. We don't want to lose any firefighters. So, when I started in the fire service, it was we'll go in, find that fire and put it out no matter what. And now it's kind of like, okay, we've got some new parameters, how we fight fires these days and how we address things. I'd like to say we've evolved and we're constantly getting better. So that's kind of what I took away.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And Chris Hecht.
Michael does a very good job about talking about the family and the interaction and the bonds between the firemen. And we see it here on our department. I interact a lot with the other fire departments in Door County and across the state a little bit less. But we really see that. And those friendships and those bonds started way before the fire department. Many of our people went to high school together, grew up together, played sports together, and they have that ultimate familiarity with each other and trust that has built up over years and years, both within the fire service and outside the fire service. And that really translates on the scene of an emergency to cooperation, understanding what other people's capabilities are. And then outside of the department, because we are such a small, close-knit community, Door County in general, I think it really lends itself to bring a higher level of care, a higher level of standard of customer service to our constituents, to our taxpayers, to our residents and guests, because we are so small and so intertwined. And I think that's reflected in his book, and it is certainly reflected in our community.
All right, thanks, Chris. I think we're getting a lot of depth here, so I'm actually going to open it up to the other three one at a time, because I think this is obviously resonating very well with all of us. So Erika DeFere, your thoughts on how the book compares to your experience?
Yeah, I think he did a great job explaining the EMR side, especially of rural Wisconsin. Just the idea of quick rushing to the station for him to get on a call, but it's similar to that when I first respond from my house, just like quick throw a pair of boots on, run out to the car, grab my bag, and just get there as soon as you can. And then two, showing up and knowing that person in a small community is a very unique experience.
All right, thanks, Erika. And Mark Dekeyser.
Yeah, I actually just read the book a couple weeks ago, and I read it that one weekend. I started reading it and I just went right through it. It was great. I mean, I thought it depicted us just exactly the way all of the rural Wisconsin is. Yeah, I'd say it was very similar. I couldn't have had a better read on that. I think he really nailed it for us.
All right, really nailed it. Thank you, Mark. And then Richard Olson.
Over the course of time, there are probably more people that I've helped that I have no idea who they were, and you'll never know who they were, but we are there to provide a service and to take care of people. But the most meaningful ones have been where I've taken care of somebody I know, and it has meant the most to them because I was the familiar face, I was the familiar voice, and they knew they could trust what I was going to help them with. Because when people call 911, they're at their most desperate moment, and it's because they need help, and they need help now. And when you're that face walking through that door, it's a powerful feeling to be able to help somebody, and that's why I answered the page.
Very good. I will kind of cap off this discussion, this question, with observation from Michael's last chapter, Sarah, in which his sister-in-law was killed in an automobile accident only 7 weeks after marrying Michael Perry's brother. And what I noticed in tackling a horribly traumatic story, had to be a devastating experience, is that Michael Perry's writing style actually changed. And he moved away from describing the emotions and the feelings to the extent he had in earlier chapters, and really just speaking about the bare bones. And to me, it says that even a wordsmith as talented as Michael Perry can fail to capture the emotional reality, the emotional experience of losing a loved one, of losing a family member. It's an experience that happens quite a bit in the small towns such as Door County. So the folks that are watching, you're looking at the faces of the people that have gone through some terrible experiences. And I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the exemplary nature of being a responder in a small town. So moving on to the next question, and this was actually hit upon in some of the introductions about having family members in the fire service or any medical service or any emergency services. So the question is, are families common in emergency services? And what is it like to work with your family members, particularly in something as dangerous as this work? So we'll start with Erika.
Yeah, kind of what you had mentioned, that came up with almost everybody in the panel that works with some unit of their family. So yeah, I work with my husband. He does a lot more of the firefighting than what I do. And then working with my brother-in-law and then my father-in-law actually as well. And then my husband's brother, so my other brother-in-law. It's a unique experience, definitely special. It definitely builds that bond stronger. But knowing that in kind of those tougher situations, that you have those people to lean on that know you on more of a personal level, I think is very beneficial. Sometimes they're also privy to your not brightest moments, or your bloopers, the trips and falls, or yeah. And then having worked with my mom actually, in myself as a paramedic and my mom as a flight nurse, getting to hand off critically ill patients to her is just a really great experience as a daughter, to be able to see my mom in that, not necessarily just that she's my mom, but also like this great provider.
Okay, Erika, thank you. Mark Dekeyser, family.
Yeah, I don't have family in now anymore, but I worked a long time with my dad. Plus, I worked with my dad in his business doing carpentry. So I know that how that went. I mean, he's probably a little harder on me than somebody else would have been, but on the fire, it was totally different because we would, most of the time I'm just running a pump or something. I'm there first and I'm running the engine, and he's kind of the guy that was going to go in and attack the fire. And there's probably only a couple instances, probably in my early career, when I did all the roof climbing for the fire department, that we would actually fight the fire together. He might be right alongside me, but with him there, it's like we kind of knew which each other person was thinking and what we were going to do, what our next step was, or how we were going to attack it. And that was kind of helpful and handy, just knowing.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Richard Olson, I believe in your introduction, you mentioned that you were first generation, but that you have got a family member that is following in your footsteps.
Yes, she is, and I'm excited to think of her future and what that might be, and if it all turns out well for her, that would be great. But as I look upon the last 30 years of the department, I think about all the brothers that I've not been a brother to, but sets of brothers within the department, and father sons on the department, and that has provided for a lot of close-knit, good situations. But I'm also aware of situations where some families don't get along. And so by having multi-generations, there's also conflict that can stem from having just families that don't always agree with each other. There's good and bad.
Absolutely agree. Just like any other family, we've got our pros and cons. We're going to continue on with the other three. Anne, you had mentioned also having family.
Yeah, it's just been a way of life for me. Really haven't known any different. It's growing up, it was my life. I remember my dad coming home back in the day with soot all over his face and his hair was wild, and he'd get home and shower and go to work. And of course, it wasn't until I was on scene and witness to a lot of what he was doing that I could truly appreciate, without being a firefighter, truly appreciate what he was doing. With my sons in this line of work, they're firefighting. You know, of course, as their mother, I worry about them. But on the other hand, I could never deny them or try to talk them out of doing what they enjoy doing and what they feel that they're called to do. And so I have to set aside my mom isms and, you know, we work together and they become an equal. They're not my sons. They are, but they're not. We're equal partners out there. And they're proud moments and, you know, you worry a little bit, but it's pretty cool to actually to see it transpire. And like I said, as much as I worry, I would never try to talk them out of or discourage them from doing what they love. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And some of the most tense moments and some of the worst calls that my sons have been on, afterwards, one of them said, "Mom, do you know how ridiculous you looked with your goggles? You had them cinched so tight to your face." And I'm like, no, I didn't worry about that right then. But, you know, we were able to laugh about it after. So we're able to share, you know, different aspects of being on calls together. So I'm grateful for that.
Okay, very good. Paul.
So one of the things I was thinking about, and I've been known to say over and over to our department up on the island, both EMS and fire, is all of you, I think of you as my second family, and I really do. And one of the great joys of being in this is just the relationships and working with each other. Memories that, I take away, and my son is in it, and I'm proud he is, and I enjoy working with him, but I've gotten to train and know a lot of young people and see them grow. And it's an awesome thing. And that's why I keep doing it, because I enjoy it and the people I work with. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Paul. And Chris, family.
I guess words can't express, for me at least, the importance, or you can't express the importance of family within the fire department, both within the unit, but then families within the fire department. So we have within our department multiple 3-generation families that have served this community. My own family, you know, and Erika talked about handing off patients to her mother. I have now a similar situation with my daughter where she's a nurse, and I watched her come up from a first responder to an EMT and a nurse, and to experience that alongside of her is amazing. But truly, one of the things that I enjoy the most is, as a father, speaking to other fathers within the department about their kids and my kids and how they're growing within the department. You know, and to be able to share the pride that they have in their children serving the community, and be able to experience that myself as a father watching my children serve the community. And so you just start to build these other levels of tie-ins and joint experiences because of the family units within the department and the things that you can share.
All right, very good, Chris. And I'd just like to add, as a follow-up to what Erika said about leaning on each other. As I mentioned before, Michael Perry didn't even write about the emotional horrors of his sister-in-law's death. And Erika talked about leaning on each other. And that's what we do, whether it's blood family or developed family, is that we understand each other. It's really well known that combat veterans don't talk about their experiences. Well, neither do emergency responders, because the English language, frankly, is inadequate to truly describe it, to convey what we go through. which is why it is so important that we become family, whether it's through blood or through experiences. And that crosses departments, agencies, states. We can get together with somebody you've never met before, and that support is there. So it is very important. Now, moving on to something much less serious is the issue of humor. And emergency rescue workers have a great deal of fun at each other's expense. As Ann mentioned with her sons in the goggles, it happens all the time. And what the question here is that Michael Perry talks so much about humor between firefighters, EMTs, paramedics. And what we're hoping here is that you could share something that is the funniest thing that either happened on a call, the station, or whatever. So what we'll do is we'll start with Erika. Erika, any funny story you'd like to share with us?
Gosh, I haven't been doing this nearly as long as a lot of other people on this panel have. So at times it's hard for me to think, like, I remember at the time that there were things that were hilarious. But I guess one that sticks out to me would be, so not all of our vehicles or equipment can make it into certain locations, like big long beaches sometimes. And I like to think that I am in pretty decent shape. I ran a marathon this year, and we had to carry this gentleman like a quarter mile off the beach after we made him comfortable. And I am just dying, like wheezing. And my partner, I look at her, I'm like, can we just take a break for a minute? And she looks at me and sweat pouring down her face. And there's like 5 of us, and they all look at me at the same time and go, no. Just dying.
Absolutely. Take advantage of any moment. I've all been there. Mark, any humorous stories you like to share?
I think, like Erika said, we always have funny stuff, but I've kept trying to think of stuff and I couldn't think of anything. And then I guess I think of one instant way back when we were probably early on that we were actually going water skiing, and we were just about getting to the bay, and all of a sudden the pager goes off. And think nothing of it, but it was a Sunday afternoon. I gotta go. So we were maybe a half mile from the accident scene. And we didn't have any people, because it happened to be fair weekend on a Sunday, and we didn't have many people show up. So I'm there. Well, we got traffic all over. So I'm just directing traffic. We didn't have signs or any of this stuff at that time. We might have had a flashlight to direct traffic. And after looking back at it, here these people must have been really looking at me crazy, because here I am directing traffic in my Speedo. And it's like, we wouldn't get by with that nowadays.
All right. Well, Mark, I'm sure you looked really good doing it. Ann, so anything beyond the goggles?
Other people have said too, there are so many, and you think, oh, I'll remember this, and you don't. There are a couple that, come to mind right away. And so many, I think more of them happened years ago when things weren't so strict and there weren't cameras all over the place where, if you were caught smiling on a call, somebody may interpret that wrong. Nowadays with cell phones and everybody taking photos. But we had gotten to an accident and the car was on its side, and the gentleman was standing up in the car, and he had his head out the window and his arms up on the door. And during the assessment, if it was the police or whoever asking him, and he's going through the alphabet, and he's like, okay, and he's drunk, so he's slurring everything, and he's like, A, B, C, D. No, wait a minute. A, B, C, D, E. No, give me one more time. And the guy, it just happened to be funny because he was being so serious, and yet he wasn't hurt. Nobody else was hurt. So you could kind of laugh about it later on. And I don't know, just coming up and having him standing and having his head popped out the window, and he's just casually trying to rattle off the ABCs and couldn't do it. I don't know. I remember that one. So, yeah.
They all make for good stories. Paul.
So Do we have enough time? So there are two ways to get transported off of Washington Island by EMS. One is a helicopter, Eagle 3 or Flight for Life. The other is by the ferry boat or another boat such as the Coast Guard or one of our fire boats or whatever. And it's always a big decision, seems to be for the patient. It's never for us. But one night I got called at 2 a.m. to our clinic, and one of our retired Islanders had his tractor run over him and broke his femur. And I know him and he knows me, and he's not one of the most pleasant people there is. And first thing he looks at me and he says, I'm not going by helicopter. No way, no how, no whatever, da 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 da. And I said, well, okay. I said, we're gonna need to go by boat then. And it's, late at night and it's in the middle of winter. And so I tried to explain to him, I said, there's a reason we should do this. And I don't want to hear it. So we're halfway across the door in the middle of the night. And he looks at me and he goes, Medicare is going to pay for this ferry ride. And I started chuckling and I said, no, that's why I wanted to explain it to you. I said, the ferry ride is going to cost you $450. Medicare doesn't pay for it. However, if you would have gone by helicopter, Medicare pays fully for the helicopter and you'd already be at the hospital in Green Bay. And he's like, Paul, why didn't you tell me that? I'm like, I tried. So that was a funny moment. And, one of the other things I'll just tie into is in this job, you look back on some of the most memorable experiences you have, and some of the nights riding back on the ferry late at night, especially in the spring. The light show you see at 2 a.m. Is just gorgeous, and it's locked in my memory. So thanks.
Okay. And Chris.
I'm not real good about recalling specific humorous events. I think there are a lot of them. As the chief, I probably shouldn't share some of them. But within the department, we use humor to help us cope. We have some people that are very good about establishing nicknames that stick, which help, especially new people, feel that they are part of the team or part of the department. And I think that's important. And really, humor is a coping mechanism. And while things may not seem funny at the time, later we're able to unwind and use humor to help us cope with whatever it is we're dealing with. And I think that's hugely important. And it has changed and touched on it. We used to be a little more free, for lack of a better term, to be ourselves a little bit or show compassion and or humor and or sadness on the scene. And now we're kind of locked in this stoic face of somebody might be filming us, and we're really not able to be who we want to be or need to be at times.
Okay, very good, very good. So I'm going to move on to a couple more questions and actually combine them. This is particularly relevant to the Door County responders, given that those of you that respond from home or have part-time duties as opposed to someone that's full-time at the station. So the question is, how do you balance work and personal life with needing to leave for a call? Balance of work and personal life, leaving for a call. So starting with Ann.
Being full-time, I am typically at the station. Going back years ago, we did carry our pagers. We didn't have as many medics on staff. And so you did carry your pager with you, and you did respond to when there was a backup call. When the other crew was out, another call came in. So you always knew that that might happen. And so in the back of your mind, you always were cognizant of, we may have to take 2 cars, or even with when my kids were little, had a lot of neighbors that had young kids, run them over there, or my parents lived in town. So that only to that level can I speak to. As far as EMRing, I cannot. So somebody else can shed light on that better than I can.
Okay. Moving to Paul, balance between life, work, and serving the community?
I guess I'll just point to my wife, and I'm married to one of the greatest women on earth. And, you know, when we're home on the island, especially in the summer, I'm one of the few that's not working all the time. So pretty much get up in the middle of anything and go, you know, and, you know, if there's plenty of people there, I'll be the first one to say, I'll tap out, you know, you guys got this, but, I pretty much, try to make every call I can, whether it's EMS or fire. It's such a small community, especially in the summer where everybody's working.
Okay, Chris, work, personal life balance with providing to the community.
It's a difficult balance. I am very fortunate in that my wife is an EMT. We actually met an EMT class in 1985. So she, you know, even before we started a relationship, she understood what it meant to be an EMT and what some of those sacrifices were going to be, which has certainly helped a lot. Like Paul, I would say my wife is a godsend, you know, and she tolerates a lot. I am fortunate in that I do this full-time for the county, but I also do it full-time or part-time and volunteer for my local community. So that blend back and forth, while it keeps us busy, you're never too far from it. So it's easy for me personally to switch back and forth, and having my family be involved makes it a little more tolerable, I believe, for them, as opposed to me getting up and leaving. Oftentimes it's multiples of us getting up and leaving and going to the same place and doing the same thing at different levels. So we take the family to a different, you know, it's like the family goes on the road show kind of thing sometimes.
Okay, Erika, balance.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of like what Chris said, because my family is so involved as well that if the pager goes off, if one of us, you know, both of us are probably always going. So extended family wise, everybody's really supportive of that. So I'm very fortunate in that sense. So my balance is pretty easy compared to most people, especially because it's what I get to also do for my full-time job, which makes it a little different. But then too, when I'm home, my family's very understanding.
Mark, balancing life.
Yeah, with family, I guess I respond to almost every call I can. So they just know I'm gonna go. I mean, they don't like it maybe at times on the holidays and that, but they put up with it and they understand. And work, I've been fortunate every time if I change jobs or something, it work, especially when it's local, they just understand it. You have to go, a lot of times if I won't go during the day unless it's a really bad call or a big fire or something. But then if I get up in the middle of the night, they know I'm not going to be in. I'll just give them a quick call and they have no problem with it. It works pretty good.
All right. And then Rich.
Being self-employed as a dairy farmer, you would think that I have the freedom of schedule that I can just drop my hat whenever I please and go. But yet there are times where it's a challenge to have to stop what you're doing, put your life in park, and go and be there for somebody when they need you. Worse than the situation, you know, leaving work behind can be challenging because you know that it's still there. You know that something was happening when you were there, and you have to stop. But to me, it's been more important to be of aid to others, and you do what you have to do. And my family understands that, and I appreciate their understanding of what I've had to do.
All right. I'd kind of like to wrap that up or highlight the common word which comes from all six of you, which has been understanding. That is, family understands. For those of you that are listening that live in Door County who are protected by these six people, they've got support from family to leave at a moment's notice, to interrupt whatever they're doing, to disrupt their lives, their entire family's lives. And to have that support, to have that understanding is an imperative because it becomes quite the burden. I'd also like to point out to you folks that are watching that, again, are protected by these people and all these other people, is the passion that is clearly coming through. And that is the hallmark of people in emergency services, whether it's EMS, medical, fire, law enforcement, special rescue, is that there's a tremendous passion, and that you are fortunately witnessing it here right now. Next question I'd like to move to is an interesting one. It's like you to share, what is it you wish people knew about your job? What do you wish people knew about your job? So let's start with Erika.
One thing I wish people knew about our job, especially since there's so many rescue 911 TV shows that portray EMS, fire, that everybody's always running into scenes and calls. And we are specifically trained to not run to things. So just because we're not running doesn't mean that it's not an emergency. So by walking with purpose, we get there safely and efficiently into your house, or wherever you are to take care of you. But we don't run.
Right. Mark, what do you wish people knew?
I guess because we've had so much struggles getting the new station and that, I wish the public knew that our department and most departments are bare budgets, and we try to get the best tools we possibly can for the cheapest price that we can. And I think a lot of people think, well, you don't need this, you don't need that, but we're not like that. We pay the taxes also, and we're watching out for their dollar as well as our dollar.
Okay, Rich.
Probably the misconception of how cool it is to ride around in the big red trucks and everything, you know, we're all happy and smiling and coming back from a call, we're enjoying that. I guess what I would want to emphasize is all the behind the scenes stuff that has to take place before we even get in that truck, and the administration, even just the dealings between people of how people interact with each other. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. It's almost unimaginable, all the things that have to be accomplished before we get in that truck.
Okay, Anne, what do you wish people knew?
Well, I think I'm going to take the opportunity to tell people that it is, and I've noticed it more this past summer than ever before, people not pulling over and yielding to emergency vehicles. It's really, really bad. And people think that they can pull halfway over going down the road and continue driving, and they're halfway off the road. It's so incredibly dangerous, not just to them, but to us as well. If they pull over, get caught and get pulled over in front of us, or that the yielding it's a courtesy thing, but it's a safety factor for everybody involved. And I really wish people would be more cognizant of that, because it just adds, it's already stressful driving an emergency vehicle. That makes it that much worse. And so I wish people would just understand, we're asking you to safely pull over when you can and stop your vehicle till we get by.
I think there's a lot of agreement on this panel, as well as every other person that's ever had red lights above them. Absolutely. Paul.
So one of the things when this panel discussion first came up, the word volunteer, what does that mean, right? And I'm totally okay with people calling us volunteers, but I've always looked at this as a job. Whether what you're paid or how much you're paid or whatever, this is a job. The things you have to know today, both in EMS and fire, the classes you have to take, the certifications, and then the training after that and the experience. I just wish people knew, what we go through to do this job. And And then the other thing that I think, especially in the last few years is, I've just always led by, and Chris Hecht has always showed me the way that, be nice, and I just wish people would concentrate on being nice, just, yeah, more civility in our society, pulling over, that's what I hope comes out of this, or hope people can take away.
All right. And Chris.
I guess what I would like people to understand is that our profession, what we do is truly a gift that we have been given by the community and their trust. And thank you for that. And get involved, there's a great video on TED Talks, and it's Mark Bezos, who is a volunteer firefighter out east. And it's about his experiences as a volunteer firefighter. And it's really get involved. And if you want to get back to your community and you want to make a difference, this is how you do it right here.
All right. We are actually pushing up towards the end of our time at 12 noon. I'll ask Beth from the library if there were any questions that you would like to open up to the panel, questions that were presented by our current audience.
Well, sure. The three questions that came out of this was one was about the multi-generational firefighting families, EMRs and firefighting families. And why do you think kids want to follow a parent into this work? What's the secret sauce, she says.
All right, I like that one of why kids follow. I'm sorry, I don't recall who exactly have got kids or family that have followed. Is there anyone who would like to jump in on that one? Why your children or anyone else you influence have followed in your career footsteps?
I can jump in if you want. I think you have to show value in what you do. I think value to the individual that's volunteering, but also show value to the community. And if you can show a young adult that there's value in what they're doing, that people appreciate what they're doing, and that there's going to be value to themselves, I think they'll follow your footsteps. But you also have to understand that there are so many, I see it in our fire department, we probably have nearly 60 years of age between our youngest and our oldest in the department. So you have to figure out a way to make it enjoyable across multiple generations. And that really gets to be a struggle. So you really have to be aware of all those different things. And you're going to be successful, but you're also going to have failures too. And I think any volunteer fire department, if you look at it, if you can keep somewhere between a third and a half of the people that say that they want to join your fire department, you're going to be successful.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Anybody else would like to talk about influencing their family into following?
I would say, go ahead.
For me, it was just the passion that I observed from my family about it, and how much happiness it brought them, giving back to their community and getting to serve and help others.
All right, thanks, Erika. Paul, you were about to add.
Yeah, I would say, like with all things with kids, they see that they watch their parents, they learn from them, they follow them. So, when they're little kids and they see you getting involved in this, and you take them to the station, and they're, they see all this, and then they kind of just, that's one way they just follow you. So yeah. And then the other thing that Chris touched on was, all of our departments, we have young people, we have older people. And one of the things that's real important for us older folks is to remember these are our future, these young people. So you need to get them involved and be willing to give up when the time comes for them to move up in the department, especially these small departments like on the island. My future is driving a truck, not being assistant fire chief anymore, not being the training officer. And I look forward to when these young people are ready to do that. And I tell them that. So thanks.
Okay. Anybody else would like to talk about influencing the next generation?
I can't speak for my two sons, but having had my grandfather and my father, both long-term firefighters, I think it was both of them have a very quiet, my grandfather's deceased, my father's still alive, was the quiet humility that they carried, and that our lives revolved around this. Growing up, there were many things that we couldn't do. It was time before pagers, and so we couldn't talk to our friends on the phone. We had one car, we had one bridge when I was little, and you had to stay on this side of the bridge if my dad was on. And I think it was this quiet humility that they lived their lives for this. They did this, they came home, weren't boastful about it. And it's like, what is it that they're devoting so much of their life for? What is it why are they doing that? And why do they continue to do it? And I have to believe that sparked an interest into why I, followed kind of in their footsteps, I guess.
Okay. Either Mark or Rich, would you like to discuss? All right, well, we are right at the top of the hour, getting right there, and this will be a good time to wrap things up. I just would like to emphasize a few things to the people that are listening that are served is you've got some incredible, wonderful people who are giving of themselves for your well-being. So when the time comes to support them, whatever the form is, please do so, because these are the faces of the people that are taking care of you, and they reflect it throughout Door County, Wisconsin, this country, this world. These are the people that matter. So I very much would like to thank the panel. This went very well, very open, and appreciate it. Thank you to Door County Library for hosting this. And I want to thank all of you that have participated, and I hope you'll join Michael Perry's talk, or at the very least, grab his book and take a look at it, because he provides some great insight. So thank you. Beth?
And thank you from the Door County Library and Door County Reads as well. David, you were fantastic. All of you folks who are on the panel, thank you so much for your time and, of course, for your service to all of us. And thank you for everyone who came in and attended the program. Let's see, in closing, we have many, many more programs to come, including a talk with Michael Perry this afternoon at 2 o'clock on the Zoom. So please check the library's calendar, and you will be able to find the link to all of our Zoom programs, but in particular, Michael Perry's discussion this afternoon at 2. We have coming up, we have a Wisconsin trivia contest. We have a songwriting workshop, and that's going to be February 6th. We have play readings. We have play reading of Kodachrome by Peninsula Players. That's February 7th. There is so much more coming in the next week, and including a whole bunch of things like book discussions. So once again, if you are interested in coming to any of these programs or watching some of the ones that we have already done, we are recording lots of things, as you can tell from us recording this one. Go to the doorcountyreads.org calendar for the links and the codes. Those are also, like I said, on the calendar at doorcountylibrary.org. And do leave us your feedback on the online evaluation forms that we have. So thank you, all of you, for joining us today, and have a lovely rest of your day and a good afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you.